something dangerous is happening in our culture. Comfort. Everyone wants to feel comfortable all the time. We need to start feeling discomfort. You ever hear the saying, being comfortable with the uncomfortable? Going to that place where you feel uncomfortable and creating a habit here. So, this is a topic that means a lot to me at the end of the day is how are we comfortable with the uncomfortable? I have a saying, do, learn, grow. This is where the growth comes from. We need to learn to go to those places where that kind of anxiety happens. And, a lot of us get that anxiety inside ourselves, and that anxiety is a place where naturally we want to run from. But that's the place where you need to lean into. Because when you lean into that anxiety, that's where the growth happens. That's that uncomfortable space. So when that happens to you, and this happens to everybody, that is when you hesitate. That's when you might give an excuse, you might point a finger, you start doing things, right? This is the body's natural disposition is fight or flight. You might get really get really aggressive towards somebody. In some cases, you might run away from somebody. But if you kind of just stop and realize at that moment, that uncomfort, that is where the growth comes from. And society as a whole is not teaching us how to deal with it. It's giving us pills. It's talking about mental health. It's labeling people a certain way because of that. We're kind of going backwards with that. We always hear about in the workforce, a whole generation lost soft skills. They avoid confrontation. And there's a saying I have, confrontation is the search for the truth. It's not confrontation, it's conversation. So let's kind of change these words around a little bit, and let's not start talking about, hey, confrontation, because I feel very uncomfortable here. Let's kind of get used to having those tough conversations. And let's make a habit of that so we could have that growth. And where it kind of really starts for me, I look at this every day. I have kids, I have 3 great daughters. I see that with my daughters. I see that with my young daughters. It's sometimes when we push them pretty hard, myself or my wife, we see them push back. And I'm realizing right there, okay, they hit their comfort zone. I got to push them a little bit. How much? We always try to push them a little bit more. My wife and I are kind of a little bit, we're winners at the end of the day. At the end of the day, we are overachievers, and so we want to push our kids to be the same way. So I see that all the time. But I also see this whether I'm at the gym, I'm in the workplace, people that I know. I have a lot of childhood friends that really are in the same hometown. They're doing the same thing their parents did. They had no growth. They didn't get out of this small little town that's on the East Coast, about 45,000 people. They never got out of their comfort zone. A story I have is I remember when I went away to college, and I went, about a couple thousand miles from Fairfield, Connecticut, all the way out to Boulder, Colorado. I come back and I go to a local bar, and one of the guys in the bar is about 6, 7 of us hanging out, having some cocktails. And he's like, hey, Craig, I can't believe you left and went that far. You're the only person I know from our high school group that really went away from the hometown. How'd you do that? I would never be able to do that. And I kind of went to myself, I was like, whoa, it never crossed my path that I was not going to leave my hometown and learn and kind of grow here. It's like I wanted to experience different things in life. And I couldn't really comprehend what he was saying. And then it dawned on me, well, this guy was scared. He had a lot of fear. He wanted that normality. He wanted to be around the same people. And that's how his mindset was. But it wasn't just him, it was everybody else. Granted, 10 years later, I go back to the same hometown, and now I'm living out in California, and I go to another local bar, and I see one of my good friends from junior high school, early days in high school, as the bartender. Now I'm in my late 20s, early 30s, so I can't remember exactly, and I got about 20 guys that I went to high school with sitting at the bar talking about old stories, and they're still in the same type of stories. They're in the same bar. They're wearing the same clothes. It was really, for me, it was an eye-opening experience, because now it's like, hey, it's almost 10, 15 years since I left the hometown, and they're still in the same place. They really didn't go out and really press themselves and put themselves in an uncomfortable situation. And then it just becomes this habit, not a good habit. It becomes a bad habit, a habit of, okay, every time I want to change myself, I'm just not going to do it. I'm going to do the same thing again and again and again. And you hear stories about this, everyone's talking about it. But then I want to put this more into how to be successful. For me, it started out with let me gain experiences. Let me see things from different areas of the country, from different people, different vocations. Let me get engaged in those conversations. I was big about face-to-face conversations. I'm a little bit older. Nowadays, it's great. You can go online and you could go to a bunch of, I think what's also kind of great about today is not only can you go online to get a lot of information, you got ChatGPT, of course, AI is everywhere, you get information, but there's also a lot of groups out there. And some of these groups, they may charge fees, but that's okay. Get out there. You could pay a fee to meet some people. I know a lot of public figures are charging nowadays for you to meet them. But yeah, if you have the means, you can go out there and learn from them and get to meet them, get out. There's stuff that's much more affordable. There's meetup groups around each and every area. I think every city has a meetup group. Probably worldwide right now, a meetup group where you can meet interesting and fascinating people and get out there and kind of learn about other people's experiences. Put yourself out there. I know that is a fear for people to put themselves out there and meet other people, but that's kind of really where the growth gets in. And that's another, if that's an uncomfortable space for you, get in a habit of doing it. Now, I have techniques where I was not naturally this way. Well, you could say I was naturally because I had that little desire to get out of my hometown and push myself, but I really wasn't naturally always aware of why I was doing it. I had more of a little voice inside myself saying what I'm doing it. But I mean, more, I want to talk about, hey, how do I make a habit of this? And I know that this is something inside myself I'm not comfortable with. So first of all, recognize that. If you recognize that you're uncomfortable in certain situations, that's great because you have awareness, self-awareness about yourself. You know that, okay, you need improvement. And so you could start with little things. Little things could be, hey, you know what? I'm going to get up an hour earlier in the morning. It's very uncomfortable getting up early. If you're used to getting up maybe at 7 o'clock, now you're getting up 6, that's uncomfortable, right? So get in a habit of doing that. You might get in a habit of avoiding that person in the workspace that for some reason that you don't get along with, or you just feel like a tightness in your chest when you talk to them. You get in a habit of just saying hi to that person, walk in the workplace. Hey, how you doing today? How's your weekend? Some small talk there. Some things like that. Maybe you are a little bit, avoid that difficult task or whatever it is, writing a report or whatever you have to do in the workplace. Maybe get a habit of doing the most difficult thing first. Because when you do the most difficult thing first, everything else is easier to do the rest of the day. Again, conversations too. Maybe you have a client or customer that just kind of annoys you. I don't want to pick up this phone call. I don't want to call them. Call them first. You call the hardest one first. The rest of the day is easy. Another thing is, I've always been in sales too. Sometimes in sales, we procrastinate. I'm not going to call my this guy. I want it to be all perfect. I'm going to call him maybe at 2:30, 1 p.m. on a Wednesday. And I'm going to do it Central Time and make sure, okay, the weather's got to be nice. I'm calling someone in the Midwest and make sure the weather's okay. I'm going to check that. Oh, I'm going to check the stock market too. I'm going to time that all for a phone call. Maybe you're overthinking that. Okay, go ahead and make that call. Some things I could say stock market, yes. Maybe if you're out there wanting to sell a product to someone, you might want to time it if the stock market's doing good that day, because nowadays people look at that every 2 seconds. But you know what I'm saying here? I'm saying, okay, don't procrastinate. Just take that call. And that's the one big thing in sales. It's a numbers game. No matter how you try to look at it, you could be as creative as possible and strategic as possible and try to have this perfect scenario. But we're human beings. We're imperfect by nature. So you just got to kind of get the reps in, and then you get better at it. And then that's where you kind of get better. That's where the growth comes in. So quit procrastinating, start doing the hardest thing first, and start getting uncomfortable or comfortable with the uncomfortable at the end of the day, because the world is awesome, man. It's awesome. There's so many opportunities there for you. So, I really want to talk a little bit more about this, and we could do it in so many different areas. And, I really do think that as a society, that's a skill set that we are not developing at a pace where it was before. Bigger conversation here, right? So we come out of this big woke culture, cancel culture. We're nervous. I have friends who have kids. Kids aren't dating as much. I have a teenager. I'm like, okay, are you gonna date yet? She's 18 years old. There's a lot. It's different. There's a lot of fear out there, right? They get uncomfortable and they kind of go into a hole. They might go into their cell phone. So there is a lot to unpackage here. At the end of the day, is hey, how do we get this generation to be comfortable with the uncomfortable? And we got to develop different ways to do it, because what worked for me is not going to work today, right? I had a different way of doing things. This is different. The world was just different at that point in time. But we could be creative about this. We could find ways to do this to get people to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. Here's a little thing I do. I do ice baths. I do hot saunas. Last night I did a hot sauna at 220 degrees, jumped in like a 35-degree ice bath. That is not comfortable getting the ice bath. I'm in that thing. I do it all the time. I've been doing it for 5 years, and I'm still like, this sucks. I want to get out. So I sat in there for about 4 minutes. I did it. I was comfortable with the uncomfortable, and that's a way to do it. So I really have this really connection with the mind and body, the physical and the mental. And so that's kind of how I practice. As I started getting up earlier, doing the 5 a.m. club for a while, I did that to get very comfortable getting up early in the morning, getting an hour head start with things. That was something that I tried out, and I do it sometimes. Sometimes I don't do it. I'm not saying it's good or bad. For me, I did it to get an extra hour in the day. But then in some cases, I'm up to 1, 2 at night, and I'm not going to get up at 5 a.m., right? Because I'm not going to sleep as much. It's just depending on how my schedule is and if I'm traveling. So trying different things out and find out what works for you is really good. But, really, it's comfort. It's coming out of our comfort zone at the end of the day. And, I really there's so much I could share about this. Just my own experiences. And even as I grow older, a lot of people get more stubborn. So the fears really creep in. They get rigid, right? They don't want to take those chances anymore. Why is that? I don't know, because every year you go, you're kind of getting close to the end, right? So why waste time? Why not try new things out? If you ever wanted to do something, try it out, because it'll be too late, right? So fear just grabs a hold of people more, I believe, in age, and especially if you see this in today's world. It's like, for whatever the reason is, the polarization is pretty great right now. And I think that has a lot to do with the fear that's built up into people. And maybe they've just gone through, some years of us not really interacting and developing these soft skills, these people skills with each other. And we really kind of lean into this a little bit more here and understand that. Why the fear? What's preventing us from getting into that uncomfortable space? Because that's where the growth comes in. And what are you waiting for? And I know we're listening to me here, because how I became successful, I consistently did this. Something I developed with repetition again and again. And I go back to my toolbox. And when things aren't going well for me, I'm like, okay, what am I doing wrong? So I journal, or I meditate on, or I think about it. I have all different mechanisms I could use, whatever at that point in time I think is appropriate. And I look at it, it's like, well, what's going on? Oh, shit. I'm kind of like not going into that uncomfortable space. I look at myself, I'm like, what the fuck, Craig? What are you doing? You are not doing what you preach to do. You have a little bit of anxiety here because this is something different. And lately, one of the things I'll admit to it, I was like, okay, I'm kind of complaining a little bit to my wife about things, and it was kind of setting up some equipment. And let's talk podcast equipment. Let's go with this. And I started having to like do it myself, kept hiring people, and they kept getting it wrong. I'm like, oh, and she's like, well, just do it yourself. Just learn it yourself. And I did it, and I was like, okay, this is not too hard. I don't know why I was uncomfortable doing that. I don't know why I kept trying to delegate that. Maybe I was abdicating that because it wasn't getting done. I dove in, did it, and now it's pretty natural. I hit a couple buttons. I know what I'm doing. But there was something, it took me some months to overcome that. Don't know what that is, but there was something inside myself that I did not like, that discomfort of just learning how to use technology. And I admit that freely. So I leaned into it. And now when I have a technological issue, I delegate to someone. They don't get done in the time period I need. I'll just dive in and do it myself, because I just needed to get done. And so this is an example. There's many examples out there. I know if you're in business, there's a coworker, if you're an owner of a business, right? Maybe you're not talking to that employee, especially small business owners. How many of us have employee issues? We bring in employees. Let's say you run a business. Most people, there's 34 million businesses in the US. 33 million have 10 or less employees. That's crazy. That's a crazy number, right? It says like 97% of all businesses. So I'm not sure the math right there. So 33 divided by 34, right? So what that is exactly is that, hey, you have all these employees. And a lot of us kind of walk around in eggshells in how we talk to them, because if we lose an employee and you have less than 10 employees, it's 10%, right, of your workforce. Let's say you're 8, it's 12.5% of your workforce you're losing. It has a significant impact in your business. One, the time to find somebody, it could take you 90 to 180 days to find somebody. If you hire, we all know if you hire quick, you might hire wrong. So you want to hire slow. But how do you hire slow when you need people to run your business, right? So then you kind of tiptoe around these conversations, and it's uncomfortable. But you got to get comfortable with that, man. I'm telling you, if you're a small business owner, you need to have a two-way street with your employees. It's critical to the success of your business. Maybe that's the reason why 33 million have 10 or less employees, because people don't have the soft skills to understand how to talk to people, how to hire right, or just how to move on from something that's happening there. So that is an uncomfortable space for a lot of small business owners. They don't want to put too much pressure out of the fear of losing this employee. And you need to kind of lean into that and go, okay, what's that reason? So, you got to lean into that. And first of all, I think if you're a small business owner, it's tough. There's a lot of things against you, especially with AI. You got the major corporations just hiring AI engineers at $1 million a pop. Most of these larger companies have 1,000 AI engineers, and you're using something you saw on LinkedIn or something that you saw on Instagram or YouTube, and you try to employ it. Well, you're not learning as fast as these guys. That's scary to be a small business owner. You don't know if you have a business, it'll be out of business next year. I mean, that keeps me up at night, right? So I'm like leaning into AI as much as I can. Yeah, it's different. I'm leaning into technology as fast as I can. I'm comfortable with that, doing that, but it wasn't right away. It's like, how do I do this? How do I solve this issue? Oh, let me move to AI. Let me try to solve it through AI if I can. And started developing some of my own AI recently. So that's quite fascinating. But it's something different, right? Something different. Fear goes up. You get that anxiety. You want to let me just do it tomorrow. Let me do it the next day. Do it the next day. But as a small business owner, you can't wait for the next day. You got bills to pay, not only for your business, but for your family. You got employees. You got to make sure that they're going to stick around. So it's a lot. It's a lot, man. You got to really get comfortable with the uncomfortable, that discomfort. That discomfort is going to affect your business at the end of the day. If you truly want to be successful, you're going to have to learn how to deal with it. First of all, learn about yourself. Learn your gaps. Learn what causes you to get that tension or to get that tight chest, that feeling of anxiety inside yourself. First of all, learn that. Learn your strengths and weaknesses, right? So I always find in the business world, find someone else with a strength to match with you, get a partner, or if you're going out to find employees, go out and find someone who complements you in a way. And there again, when you're interviewing them, and we could talk about this sometimes, employee acquisition, how to do that and how to find employees, is when you're doing that in the interview process, very clear to them their role and responsibilities and personalities and how you are and how you want to work with them. Just be clear and transparent up front. Most people don't, again, because I don't know why. How many interviews have you gone to where it's one way during the interview process, you get the jobs completely different? Just be transparent up front, right? That's the easiest way to do it. I'm telling you, that's the best way to do it, because it's going to come back and haunt you. How many of you are in a relationship and that relationship starts off on a lie? It never works out. So you're in a relationship when you hire somebody, right? So you want to be transparent. Don't worry about that feeling, oh, I might not get this person. Don't worry about that fear. That is a discomfort in your own mind. You have to overcome that. As soon as you learn how to do this, you accomplish so much. It's a skill that has to be developed. It has to be practiced, right? So one thing I'm doing is right now, as I'm big into physical fitness, and during this time period, I'm doing some CrossFit. I'm trying out for the CrossFit Games, my age group, and I'm noticing hey, I'm completely uncomfortable, right? I'm hitting a point where is my heart going to stop? It's beating so fast. So it's like, how much could I push myself into that discomfort again and again? And that's my scores get better. Okay, I did that. And then that makes me um, more fit for the next time I face it. And then I go push myself a little bit more, push myself a little bit more. I just call it like extra 10%. So how can I throw an extra 10% in each workout? And that allows me to get more fit. When you're older, the downside is sometimes like, okay, if you take a step back, it might take you 2 steps to get back to normal. That's what I've been figuring out. So, but that's okay. I understand there's a lot more discomfort I have to go through again to get back into that elite shape. And I just kind of get used to it. And sometimes I go, oh, man, again, last week the scores were this, and then I took a week off, and it's going to take me 3 weeks to get it, but that's okay. And then that rolls over into everything in life. For those of you who are out there working real hard, entrepreneurs, small business owners, executives too, and having that work-life balance. And one of the last things I know, like I come home and I'm like, okay, great. And then your wife's sitting there talking about, or partners sitting about all these things you have to do that you haven't done. It's like, great, do I really want to have this conversation? This is not comfortable. And, me the other day, I'm like, okay, you know what? I am going to lean into this and have this conversation. Even though I want to relax, I'm tired, I'm irritable, I'm going to listen to my wife and I'm going to listen to her feelings and what she wants to talk about. Yeah, not easy for all of these out there who understand what I'm talking about. But as I do that, it's easier to do. So it's like easier for me to have those conversations when she wants to have them. Granted, they are at the most random times. I think a lot of us out there know that's like you if you have a partner, it's it's always on their terms when they want to do it, right? So it's like, but okay, I'm getting more comfortable with that, those tough conversations. But again, we're doing this I talked about this is CXC Experience, which is Craig's and Cecilio. That's myself, my experiences in life, and how I overcame my own obstacles to get where I am today. Being comfortable with the uncomfortable is a thing. It's something that is very, very true to me at the end of the day. And I could go back, and it starts for me. It goes back in childhood. It goes back into when I was a young kid. I had to overcome a lot of obstacles in life to get where I am today. Here I am today, 2026, doing new things. I'm pivoting my whole business with new revenue models. Haven't done this before. I like to look at things in different market cycles where the opportunities are. It's not the easiest thing. You got to put your blinders on what you did in the past. Okay, you got to look at that, right? You can't ignore that. You got to lean into it. Okay, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? What can I do better? Have to do that without a doubt. You have to look at that. Look at the gap. What I do right with my customers? What I do wrong with my customers? I had to get in front of, do some webinars, and I think I did about, I'm not really sure, anywhere from 6 to 10 of these webinars to a section of my customers, about 200 people, and get in front of them and said, hey, yeah, I made a mistake. I made a mistake here. That's not comfortable to get in front of people and say, you made a mistake. And I got in front of them. I made a mistake, and this is how we're going to do it. A lot of people disagreed with me. I guess a lot more disagreed with me than I thought would. But I said, that's okay. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. This is how you're going to benefit from it. And it was not a comfortable thing to do. And I was like, okay, I'm going to brace this discomfort. So when it comes to those difficult conversations with customers or shareholders, it's easy for me, right? And it's easy for me because I practice and I develop that skill. And especially if you're in a leadership role, you have to always be pressing yourself. You always have to be growing and learning and developing those skills necessary to be successful. So being comfortable with the uncomfortable is a prerequisite for success. So as I say this, is like, hey, you know what? What are you doing today to practice that? Is it getting up early? Is it going to gym? Is talking to a difficult employee? Is talking to that difficult customer? Start learning. Start doing, right? I say do. And then you learn from it, and that's where the growth happens. Get in the habit of doing this again and again. As a society, we're going backwards. If you're looking at this, we're really going backwards. This is not getting embraced in school, right? Hey, the other day, my kid is in, she does athletics, one of my kids, and she is kind of getting stuck. And we had this long conversation, and I'm just like, hey, you know what? She's either got to do it or not, right? But they keep allowing her another chance, another chance. I'm like, just take a test. If she passes it, great. If she doesn't, let's just move on to the next stage. So what I'm trying to get at is society is set up for the failure to be acceptable in some manners. And I'm like, oh, well, this is not really where she's going to grow too much because it's acceptable for her to be just average. And I'm just like, have her try out, take a test. She doesn't make it. It's her choice. We move on. No more lessons. That's it. She's done. And I say it didn't really happen, but it's one of the things I'm going to stand by. But that's kind of what an example of how society is not set up to deal with the discomfort. And especially in some of these sports leagues, I know there's like 6 or 7 levels for each age. And for me growing up was just one. You either made the team or you didn't. Even in high school, we didn't have a freshman team in half the sports. It was like JV. As a freshman in high school, you had to make JV before you get to varsity. There's no freshman level. So you're either you made it or you didn't. And that was it. That's the end of the story. So you just worked your ass off because I wanted to play sports to make the team, or you didn't make it, right? And that's the one part of society, right? So it's one thing. I'm talking about athletics. But again, getting a job. Going for those interviews. Maybe that's you're not comfortable doing that. Maybe you have a job and you don't like the job. Maybe you don't feel comfortable doing that. Go out and do 10 interviews. Just apply to 10 different jobs. Just put that energy into it, and you'll find maybe you'll get accepted in one that kind of matches you. Is that something that's innate? Is that natural for you to do? Granted, no, it's not. It's probably not comfortable to do it. It's very uncomfortable to do that. But if you did that, just think about that. Now you put yourself in a position instead of interviewing for 1 or 2 jobs, it's 10 jobs, right? You do that, you most likely get the one you want the best. And what do you have to do? All you had to do was be comfortable going through that job interview process, which most of us aren't probably, most likely. So, that's another example of how to do it. And I could talk all day about this with stories and from athletics to business to relationships, how that works. And the other day, talked to a friend of mine. He's got some boys are growing up and teenagers, and they're very shy about dating right now, and they're not getting the reps in of getting turned down by a girl or getting accepted. Some of us are just lucky, and maybe every girl we approach that or someone we approach, we get accepted, right? Not normally. Normally you get turned down, and how they're avoiding that because it just feels so wrong. The anxiety is so high. So society is teaching us today to not embrace the discomfort. It's ruining lives. It's ruining people. We need to develop this school set. We need to do something about this. School, forget about it. Everyone's nervous about getting sued for some reason. That's all another subject I don't even talk about, but everyone's so nervous about this and getting labeled and someone's criticizing you. Get out there. Get online. I go online. I get critiqued. It's okay. I'm like, big deal. You're critiquing me. Okay. Are you putting yourself out there? Not really. You're not putting yourself out there. So, you got to put yourself out there. Can you handle the critique? It comes with the territory. So something, when I first started, maybe I was a little uncomfortable with it. Then I'm like, what else? I don't know. I was like, I'm going to be myself. I'm going to be authentic. I'm going to be who I am at the end of the day. I know who I am. I'm comfortable in my own skin, and I'm going to put my narrative out there, because if I don't put my narrative out there, someone will for me. So I got comfortable doing that, and that's why I do stuff like this, and I share it on my podcast, CXC Experience. So I'll be bringing guests in from different kind of parts of my life in the past, today, and then hopefully some future guests as I meet some great people. I've had a lot of great experiences, and I want to share those experiences. I've been around some fantastic people. I've been a younger person around people at events and stuff that I got exposed to some great people and some great things, some things that are just okay, right? Some things in the business world that maybe worked 20 or 30 years ago don't work today, and that's okay. I accept that. So I'm not going to be this person who goes, well, the way I used to be, right? I'm not going to do that kind of line. That's not who I am as a person, because I understand things are different today, but these underlying principles and morals of being comfortable with the discomfort That is something that's missing. We have to lean into that. Athletics is a great thing, but it doesn't work in athletics if everybody makes the team. Schools, are you getting grades? I'm looking at my kids' grades the other day, S's and E's, and I don't know what the hell this is, and D's and stuff, but A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D, and F. This is what we had growing up. I think that's fine, but for some reason, it's a little different. See how society's doing this? Jobs, as the most qualified person getting jobs. School, applying to colleges. How's that working today? It's very competitive. It's hard to do. How's that work? Is there transparency over that and seeing how that's going? It's different. It's a different world, right? It's a different things. Things are a little bit different. But again, I'm going to pull myself back because I like to go all over the place here, is being comfortable with the uncomfortable, right? One thing someone's always like at work, well, I've been the boss for years and I've always had my own businesses, and you got to take that because you do something to somebody and they go online and they say something about you. Okay. But at the end of the day, I have a boss. I call it Mr. P&L. So I have to look at my profit and loss statement and be brutally honest with myself. That's the most comfortable thing. I don't want to look at it like every single day, but it's in my head every single day. And so looking at that and going, how can I improve this? What can I do to bring in more revenue for the business? What can I do to give shareholder value? That's something different. If you take outside dollars from people, how are you increasing the value of that investment? That investment is you in your company. One, remember I just said you in your company, right? So what that means to me is, are you developing the skills necessary to run your business? If people are putting money into your business for you to run it, not only the business has to be successful, but you have to get better to make that business successful. I think we forget that. So that's an investment you have to put into, because people are putting that investment not just into your business, but into you. If you're in real estate and you take on partners, right? Limited partners, investors, again, they're investing in the project, but they're also investing in your ability to manage the project. So you're keeping up to date with what's going on globally, right? You have to look at what's going on globally in today's market, and then kind of nationally and then locally in those areas. Markets are all different. They're always changing. There's outside influences. We just came across a time period where cap rates went up the fastest across 40 years. And if you're in commercial real estate, it's tough. You're not getting that liquidity as much as people expect. And your investors, one of them or two of them or how many you have, might be going, hey, I need that liquidity. And you're like, well, it's not. It's illiquid. We have to wait for the market. And so there might be a mismatch there. And so you have to have these uncomfortable conversations. I know I have had to have a lot of these, and, some cases where, for instance, I'm comfortable having these things, is sometimes I think maybe my investors aren't comfortable using the mass media that I have to use to communicate to many people, but that's just the way I have to do things. But not avoiding those conversations and really lean into them will really help you out, especially if you're investing with people's money. There's a lot of uncomfortable conversations you have to have with that. And if you have anxiety or a person who likes to avoid those things, you'll end up spending a lot of money on attorneys, because people will end up getting emotional and irrational, and eventually that will go to them hiring an attorney to sue you. So you definitely have to take that under consideration, right? In the business world, you need to pick up the phone, you need to have communication or whatever method that is, and that you set up those channels to do with your investors. Going again, a lot of this is uncomfortable stuff, people. I'm telling you, you gotta get comfortable with the uncomfortable. We're living in this world where these skills aren't being developed, and if they are being developed at a pace that's too slow. So we have a whole generation that avoids conflict, avoids conversations. We're on our cell phones. If you're going out at night, and I really haven't been out that much lately, but if you're looking at people at a date, maybe they're both on their cell phones the whole time. Where's the communication here? A lot of video meetings, right? I mean, lately I'm like, no more video meetings. Maybe I do a phone call, and then if I like you, I do a face-to-face. I just had a face-to-face meeting yesterday with a gentleman. It was fantastic. We had good energy back and forth. I like the face-to-face stuff. So maybe you have to push yourself to have more face-to-face encounters with people, because a lot of people are like, well, I don't like that. Public speaking. This is a big one. A lot of people fear public speaking. People fear being online. Well, where do you want that growth to come from, right? If you're trying to grow in today's world, and let's talk about growth yourself. First of all, you want to develop the skill set of learning how to public speak. It's great skill to have. Opens the doors because now you can start selling one to many. And then also you can manage more people that way, I believe too, at the end, and get more customers, right? And so I had something in our office, and I was about to jump live on some webinar, do some training, about 20 people. And I love that stuff, and we're having trouble with the equipment. The equipment, could someone just do it? Do I have to do it myself? Right, we're having trouble, so we're a little delayed with the equipment. And I go to this person who works for me, a younger person. I'm like, hey, can you jump on the Zoom meeting in advance? Just let everyone know. And he kind of looks at me. He's like, do I have to do that? I'm like, yeah, just jump on and just say I'm going to be a few minutes late. He wouldn't do it. And I'm like, what, are you kidding me? You won't jump on a Zoom meeting just to say, hi, Craig's running a few minutes late? He would not do that. And I'm like, what is going on? I was like, we have this business that's going to be one to many. And so he would rather train 20 people one-to-one for an hour. That's 20 hours a week of training. Just think of that, your job, 20 hours a week of training. We do 1 hour, or if you wanted to double down, 2 hours a week to a group of 20 people. And he wouldn't do it. And I'm like, for myself, I'm like, okay, one thing is I'm not, I don't get uncomfortable having tough conversation with them. It's like, hey, this is part of the job. You're going to have to learn how to do this skill. I was empathetic. I was like, hey, empathetic and me kind of sometimes don't go together, but I was empathetic. I'm like, hey, I could help you out. So this is how we could do it. Is every time I go live, I could have you just introduce me, just pop your head in for a quick 10 seconds. As soon as you get used to doing that, I could have you kind of come on for 30 seconds, maybe do an opener, and we could build that confidence up in you. He didn't want anything to do with that. And I'm like, where did I make the mistake on that one? So unfortunately I had to let him go, because this is the culture I'm trying to create is something of growth, and someone was being resistant of that. But the fear of the public speaking was just so big. And maybe it's a generational thing. I think he was in his late 20s, early 30s. And he just didn't want to learn. He ran. It was like, I looked at him and it was like, whoa, the expression on his face was like, do never freaking ask me to do that. And I was like, whoa. And this is just kind of the nonverbal communication that I got from him. And I was like, okay, I'm not gonna be able to change him. So I was like, And then what I learned, I always learned something from this. It's like, okay, how could I put this in the hiring process? I was like, kind of put it in the role description, kind of talk to him about it before we interviewed him, how we're doing this coaching and one-to-many stuff. I missed it, right? So it was on me at the end of the day. So I got to go into that space of myself. And it's like, okay, now you got to redo your recruiting process, Craig. You didn't interview right. So here I go again. A lot of this is the examples of being uncomfortable, right? Is like, this is great stuff. Like some of you are like, okay, what else? What resonates in you? And we're all different. We all come from different backgrounds. And I just like the fact that I lived on the East Coast. I lived in the Rocky Mountains, then I lived in the West Coast. So I got to see different types of people. A lot of it was pre-cell phone. And then, of course, the internet the last kind of decade and a half with all that stuff and social media. And really, I love this stuff. I love how fast the world's moving. I love the new skills coming in. I'm embracing AI. I love AI. I love how it's going to change how we do things. I'm not sure what's going to happen then next year, whether alone 3, 5, and 10 years. Someone's like, what's your 10-year plan? I'm like, I don't know what AI is going to do, but I better incorporate that in business today because, it's going to change a lot of things, what's going on. Global economy and how that affects things, how like the stock market, every day looking at that affects someone's opinion. And we're all kind of glued to Robinhood and we get like a buzzer. Oh, your Bitcoin's down, right? Shit, it was like 120 and now it's like, it's 60. I'm like, oh, great. How does that affect people, right? Everyone's got an opinion on things at the end of the day. It's just a different world, but I embrace it. I don't have like a lot in Bitcoin. I have money in it, of course, right? So I'm going to play that out, but it's not going to affect me if it goes up and down. It is what it is at the end of the day. And maybe I get it right, maybe I don't, right? Half of you are going to get it right, half of you are going to get it wrong. That's how it is. And the ones who get it right are going to say, hey, I was right. And the ones who get it wrong are like, oh, I should have made this decision. And that's kind of hindsight, right? So that's just kind of the way things are, right or wrong, right? Things are kind of in the middle. You got to see the decisions you make at that point in time. Don't beat yourself up about it, right? You make a wrong decision, move on to the next. You're making a decision. That's a choice. You're doing this. And sometimes making decisions is not the easiest thing to do. Sometimes we just go, well, I'm not going to make a decision because I don't feel comfortable making a decision. And another conversation I had, a business conversation with a colleague, he wouldn't make a decision. I'm like, you got to say something, man. I'm like, say something. You got to give me something here. And he would not. And I'm like, oh, God, in my head, I'm like, there's a million variations of something. There always is a way. And it was like, boom, again, that fear. Oh, if I say the wrong thing, you know what's going to happen? It's just like, there's wrong thing. You're just saying something. Wrong thing. It's an adjective. Right, wrong, neutral, still a thing. So you got to kind of practice and develop that skill, right? This one, I was amazed. I was just like, okay, just say something, right? And that wasn't happening in this situation. And at the end, then we came up with something, but just anxiety hits, and I see it. I see it every day. People just freeze up. It's crazy. It's excuses, and I'm going to elaborate on this one, man. It's like these excuses, but if you notice, you get in a conversation and you ask someone a question, and it's like 20 minutes of like, and then you kind of like, okay, I think I asked one question. Why are we kind of talking this for 20 minutes? And they kind of go in circles. For whatever reason, they're avoiding answering the question, right? Because they don't feel comfortable telling you the truth or giving you what you want because there's a fear there. And when I have these conversations, I know right away. I'm asking a direct question. Answer the question. Answer the question. Answer the question. Maybe that comes across like a little aggressive, right? Just ask a question, then it goes around. Answer the question. Answer the question. So I kind of have to. You have to take control of the room when you're doing that. But a lot of people go around because they don't feel comfortable answering the question, and just like, hey, just answer the question, right? Let's get down to it, and just kind of figure that out. Why don't they feel comfortable? Well, in a workplace, some people feel they feel inadequate. They might feel like they're going to get fired. They might feel like you will look down on them, not have as much respect in them. Some people just aren't capable of doing things, and maybe they're faking it. Maybe they just haven't figured it out, and that's okay, right? Some things take time. Maybe for whatever reason, there's a lot of variations. If I were you and someone asked you a question, I'd give them the answer the best you can at that point in time, right? Learn how to be comfortable. Learn, because once you establish that skill, sky's the limit, man. You can take care of it. So, parting words, CXC Experience, check me out. Subscribe to my YouTube video. Check me out on social. Learn to be comfortable with the uncomfortable.